Hey guys, hope you're well. Have an update about DOA's bail revocation hearing. So let us not bury the lead. Color me quite surprised, but DOA did have a mild success. He was able to avoid jail. So he was successful in that, but we'll go into the details. And he was, even though he was able to avoid jail, he was reprimanded by the judge. And the judge did say that if he ever spoke about Tanya, Rib Guy, or Becky, or if he issued directives for anybody else to do anything to them, or if anybody closely associated with him involved in this case, whether it be Sandra or Ashley or any one of DOA's minions, if they go after any one of these three people, then that will also land him in jail and get his bail revoked. So this is kind of when you analyze the political attitude of various justice systems across the country. And LA, unsurprisingly, is one of the most progressive. Now, a lot of the times, being progressive in the justice system is a good thing. You give people more opportunities who are non-violent offenders, perhaps with drugs, perhaps with other stuff, with license suspensions, whatever. So there's some good times when it's important to be progressive, but this is when it's a negative, because the judges in LA will give anybody who has a bail revocation hearing, usually more often than not, at least a warning, because they are known to be more progressive and therefore known to go easier on the defendant than other court systems would. If DOA were in Mississippi, for example, DOA would be immediately in jail. But LA, at least ostensibly, although there's so much corruption involved in terms of the connection with the city attorney and the DA and connections that they might have with Scientology, connections that they might have covering up police abuse. So they aren't actually really progressive, but at least procedurally on a few specific things, this is when LA is more, or California in general, is more progressive than other places. So in another place, he'd be in jail, but because it's the city of Los Angeles, that is not the case. So that's the big news. But it was, I missed it all because obviously I'm in New York and not in LA, but I had Henry. Henry was able to show up, and I keep saying to Henry, why don't you do your own thing? But I think he's focused on even potentially becoming an attorney. So I'm able to relay a lot of the information, and he was there, and I think he's a pretty trustworthy person. So essentially, what happened is that DOA had his bail revocation hearing because he apparently harassed Rib Guy. He doxed Rib Guy. This is an interesting bit of information. Not only did he dox Rib Guy, and as you may know already, but he revealed his credit report. So it goes beyond just doxing, but it goes to the point of revealing private financial information. Now, there could be an entire argument, is this publicly accessible? But if you have to pay for it, then that's actually sort of a step away from being publicly accessible because you have to pay for something. And then furthermore, do you need a private piece of information to access the credit report, right? So then it's not publicly available information. Do you need somebody's address? Do you need somebody's social security number? How do you have that? Obtaining that, you're obtaining private information. And by that account, if you have private information to get information in the first place, then it's private information because you need private information to reveal the other bit of information. So that did not look good whatsoever. And then, of course, with DOA harassing Becky, to her credit, I still saw her talking with Moxon, but, and she says I'm lying about that. That's not the case. But Becky and Rib Guy went out of their way to note the presence, how am I blanking, of Kendrick Moxon. They did go out of their way in the court to note the presence of Kendrick Moxon and to indicate that Moxon had deep ties to Scientology. So credit to the two of them for saying, listen, there's a guy that we feel questionably about and that might have questionable motives, and he is connected with Scientology, and he is there, and the court should be aware of his presence. So credit for them. It doesn't, even if there's one conversation specifically, it doesn't seem like there was a continuous relationship with Becky or Rib Guy in terms of Ken Moxon or his assistant Jennifer or anything else like that. Because again, they went out of their way to highlight his presence at the court. There are a lot of people that were present. I believe Sandra's there. I believe Ashley was there. DOA obviously was there as his attorney, Cape Lovitz, as well as Rib Guy, who came all the way from Northern California, Tanya, who's one of the victims, Becky as well. Henry was there, and I think there were even some additional people. And then another... Another guy was there. I've just learned of this character. There's so many fun characters to learn about. You can never really keep track. But there was this guy there named Shrimp. And Shrimp is this Asian gentleman who is kind of known as the gadfly of LA City Council and does his testimony and says very funny things and has had a very light, mild relationship with some of the anti-Scientology streamers, although he has his own thing and is really not heavily involved. In the beginning, what DOA tried to do, because perhaps he saw somebody sitting in the stand who had some relationship with the anti-Scientology people, but who weren't directly involved with the bail revocation. The name wasn't directly put on there. So perhaps he singled out that one guy, but he said Shrimp orchestrated all of this. That Shrimp got Becky as a stooge to be at a location so she could be harassed by DOA, and that Shrimp convinced Rib Guy to overblow and get more angry about the credit report release that he might have already been, and that all of this has been masterminded by the talented Mr. Shrimp. The judge threw that off on his face, said that's not relevant, and let's continue into the proceedings. So I have some notes I wrote down on the computer, which is right behind me. And so the original argument was this is all actions of the First Amendment. That Cape Lovitz, DOA's attorney, was saying that DOA should not be back in jail or should even have the threat of going back to jail because all of this was First Amendment. And the judge says, well, it's not just First Amendment, because the judge remarks incitement as well as harassment. Incitement of a specific action for his followers to do, as well as harassment. And doxing could be part of that. A myriad of things could be a part of that. In addition, there were other actors. There were other people involved. It wasn't just DOA doing the harassment, it's allies of DOA. So once you bring in another person, then it even kind of looks worse, because it's not just one person who has their own issues. It's directed, planned, premeditated harassment in the sense of you're getting somebody else to also do the harassing. And one incident that was mentioned was the very level-headed Josiah, who apparently was harassing Becky and screamed and called her a fat, ugly bitch. So not smart of Josiah to do that, and that was used against DOA in this hearing. Also, another interesting thing is DOA tried to say that he didn't access the credit report. He just revealed the information. Therefore, it was publicly accessible. But after some conversation, Sandra, a close ally of DOA, did admit that she was the person to put forth the effort to run the background check. Which, again, it's not just DOA anymore. It's Josiah harassing Becky. And then it's also... It's Josiah harassing Becky, and then it's Sandra doing the bidding and doing the legwork and being in charge of the logistics to actually operate the credit report. What's going on? Right? So, it goes beyond, I think, just a First Amendment issue. Sorry, I'm just looking. And then there was also conversations, and the attorney was trying to say these witnesses were not credible, that they have an axe to grind to the DOA, and the judge says it's not credible, that witnesses are credible. This goes beyond First Amendment, starting with incitement, and then continuing with harassment and some other issues. The judge says, I understand people who show up to protest, but why are these other family members involved? Meaning that not only has DOA gone after individuals specifically, he's attacked their friends, their family members, and it's gone beyond just a mutually assured destruction where other people who felt like they were victims were involved in this. So everything makes it a lot worse. But with LA being the process that it is, the guy has one more chance. Apparently, he might have already violated it. As to the recording of this video, he might have done that a handful of minutes ago. So this is certainly the last straw. And the judge essentially gave DOA an ultimatum. The judge said, listen, you can go to jail now, or you could never talk about Rib Guy, Tanya, Becky again, nor can any of your supporters, any of your hardcore fans, any of your minions talk about these three individuals again, nor can you issue vague directives with their name left out, but it's obvious as to who the directive is directed towards. So the judge did make sure to remark upon that. So that's the rub. I mean, it doesn't, DOA is a free man, so his lawyer is effective in arguing the First Amendment case, and if there was no lawyer, he probably would have been in jail then and there. Here's the other thing to analyze, guys, and this is when you have to be very realistic. If DOA violates it again, will there necessarily be a hearing? Will he necessarily get his bail revoked? Probably, but look at what's happening with ZDT. ZDT has violated the conditions of his bail, or even worse, ZDT has violated his temporary restraining order. And he had violated his Yes, he had violated the temporary restraining. He had violated the full restraining order. Sorry, ZDT violated the full restraining order even after he was arraigned on charges. At each hearing, his violations have not come up. It's as if it's irrelevant. Now, I do think, and this is not good, you have to look at the reality. I do think there is that some of the judges are giving ZDT some semblance of favoritism or extra leeway. And I honestly think that, in my opinion, and this is just a tragedy of it, that the DA's office and the city attorney's office have such a close relationship with Scientology that they want to prove that they don't. So they're going through the motions of actually charging ZDT, but they don't actually care. And they're not going to follow up with any bail violations. And that there is this insidious relationship where, I'm just looking ahead. I don't think there's a chance, though, that the charges could even be fully thrown out. I don't think it's going to look good. And as with what's happening tomorrow, same situation. The judge did not seem to be on Mindy's side, and maybe that's because the judge was giving the Mindy restraining order effort against ZDT. That just could be that the judge was giving ZDT's team every opportunity they can, so they can't appeal anything. But she seems to have a relationship or know ZDT's attorney and be very friendly with him and be very accommodating towards him and understanding towards him. Now, of course, if you have a friendship with the attorney, you might be more sympathetic towards the person who she's trying to get a restraining order against as well, more sympathetic towards CDT. So I'm looking at all of the dynamics of everything, and it's just kind of interesting to analyze. And if ZDT hasn't really been brought up again, so I don't, people could try, but I don't know necessarily if DOA will be brought up, even if he violates any of these things. I don't know if he'll be brought up for a bail revocation. Entirely possible. Now, here's the difference. CDT has never been brought up. DOA already has, and has been. The revocation has been brought up quite quickly. So, that it's entirely possible that if he violates it, that it does get brought up quickly. But I'm just trying to be realistic and kind of analyze what actions the prosecutors might take and what actions they might not take. It's kind of hard to figure that out because they'll always surprise you. You always think something's going to happen in a hearing, and it oftentimes never does, and you think we're going to go to trial and there's another delay or something like that. But I hope I'm wrong with a lot of this stuff, and I hope Mindy is successful in her restraining order against CDT. And there's another big argument in terms of that case, that the judge is giving all the rope that ZDT could use to hang himself in every opportunity, and that he can't challenge any ruling or any proceeding after all the continuances have been granted. But the only reason that I'm concerned about this is because the temporary restraining order was rejected by a judge. The judge didn't say it had no merit, but the judge just said this has to be argued in court. At least with Solomon, the temporary restraining order was granted before the actual hearing and everything else. Minty does not have a temporary restraining order. So I don't know if that, to me, that's not a great sign, but it also just shows that the judge just feels like it should be debated. But never underestimate a judge's ability to be wary of a victim. Never underestimate a judge's ability to want to hurry things and want to go home. I always think psychologically, what does a judge think? I hate to say it, but a lot of the judges just want to clock out. That's all they want to do. They want to make things move as quickly as possible so they could go home. Because it's not like they have a set 8-hour day, I don't think. It's just based on the cases. And a lot of them, they hate when people bring up extra stuff, bring up extra evidence. They just don't like it. So, yeah, I think that's the rub. DOA has one chance. It's hard to say if he violates it, would he actually be brought up for bail revocation or not. August 4th is the next hearing. I might try to show up for August 4th. I don't know, guys, but I'll let you know. But he's certainly making this worse for himself. And finally, I'll say in terms of DOA, even though he didn't get his bail revoked, and let's say he acts perfectly and very well behaved the entire duration, what could still happen is all of this could be used as evidence against his character. Remember, DOA is only on trial for messing with the planters, as well as really kind of beating up kind of this random dude who's not really connected with Scientology. So it's a bit of a, one of the things that will be analyzed in court is how badly was he beat up? Was there, again, some sort of mutually assured destruction? Did they kind of both enter in an understanding with each other that there would be some sort of fight? Hard to say. But, if you are the prosecutors and you want to prove that DOA started this fight out of nowhere and started wailing on this guy out of nowhere, they have something under their belt now. What they can now say is, listen, this guy almost got his bail revoked for harassing in a very hostile and arguably violent way, for harassing these other people. So it is within this guy's character to start fights out of nowhere and antagonize out of nowhere and cause hurt, cause pain, and cause damage out of nowhere. So all of this looks very bad for a character analysis, and oftentimes character analyses aren't that important, except when you're analyzing, did this person start a fight? Does this person have it within himself to randomly become violent, irrational, psychotic? And looking at the actions that DOA has made in the past 2 months, you can see that there's a lot of psychosis involved, right? Maybe he should prove not guilty for reason of insanity. I mean, the guy's insane. That's what I would do. I would just say, I'm a psychopath, and clearly I'm not mature intellectually, and I am mentally retarded in some regard, and that's what the claim that I would make, and that is why I'm so psychotic. I think a judge would buy that, quite frankly. So I would go for the, maybe try to chill at a mental hospital for 6 months. That I would go for that. I would just say, listen, I am insane. I don't understand things. I am not very intelligent. And again, I'm like more online with somebody with Down syndrome, but with more ill intent. But I'm more online with somebody who is really a child, and I could only understand the damage of my pain in a way that a child would, because I'm not very smart. And then my actions also show that I attack people for no reason, and that I'm arguably schizophrenic or psychotic. Again, if I were DOA, I would hurry to the doctors, because I think the dude's schizophrenic. I would hurry to the doctors. He's definitely schizophrenic. Everybody's watching him. Everybody's going after him. Everybody's attacking him. Everybody's a bad actor. I would go to the doctors and say, I'm seeing shit. They're gang stalking me. Shrimp is gang stalking me. Shrimp is the feds. Becky is the feds, and they're gang stalking me, and can you please say I'm schizophrenic? That's what I would try to say, because at this point, they painted a very clear picture, if he's not psychotic, of somebody who is violent, ill-intentioned, and knows the damage that he inflicts, and that's very dangerous in a court of law. So even though DOA was successful and has a nice win in not getting his bail revoked, although he got himself here in the first place, this looks bad, bad, bad in terms of the actual meat of his trial and in terms of analyzing the outcome of whether he'll be successful or not. So keep following me, and maybe I'll see you on the 4th in actually outside the court, but I'll keep you posted. Au revoir. Bye-bye.